So I do have some quiz stuff, just random things at the end of this, but yeah, is this a good angle? All right. So I wanted to talk today about inflammation. This is kind of a really broad stroke topic just because it kind of, if you see my first statement, it's literally inflammation is the root of all disease. And I kind of put it into the context of thinking about any typical sick person. You know, they're coughing, they're sneezing, they have a fever. All of those are signs of acute inflammation. It's the body reacting to something that's in it that shouldn't be there, and the body becomes inflamed to try and target that thing and get it out. Now, the problem with inflammation is when it becomes chronic, and that's what we see a lot in people who develop chronic illness, which is like, you know, it's nice that they're both called chronic. And I went ahead and defined chronic versus acute. So in these terms, chronic is ongoing, recurring, lasting a long time, something that's repeated over and over again. Whereas acute is one-off, short period of time. It can be targeted and healed. So what I typically see in like modern health approaches today is modern medicine is really, really good at treating acute injuries. You know, the fact that we can bring someone into the hospital with a limb hanging off and they survive is incredible. The fact that we can stint a heart is incredible. Like, we're very good at those things, but we're lacking in treating chronic inflammation. And it's such a hard topic to cover because there's so many things that have changed in the last 100 years that seem to be spurring chronic illness in our society. But I think there are several things we can do just in our day-to-day lives to like try and decrease it, even though we are surrounded by Wi-Fi all the time, which has been pointed at as an issue. We're surrounded by plastic all the time, which has been pointed to as an issue. Like, there's a lot of environmental things, gas from cars, you know, a lot of things that we don't necessarily have a ton of control over, but we can reduce whenever possible. So I wanted to try and talk about those today, which brings us to top 6 ways I like to recommend people that you have control over to decrease chances of chronic illness. So number 1, of course, pay attention to your food and water intake.
Why water? I thought water's good.
Water's great, and that's why I say pay attention, because a lot of people just don't drink it. A lot of people aren't drinking enough water. And, you know, clean water is also a thing, but, like, just don't even worry about water quality at first, right? Just get yourself enough water in the day. Get used to drinking enough water throughout the day. He's getting up to get more water. But yeah, so simply increasing your water is a huge game changer. Everyone's serving themselves water. I love it. I know, class is listening. Yay.
Tea is like 90% water, right?
Tea is really, yeah. So I do say, actually, because like I love water, but even I get sick of drinking it for the amount that I typically recommend someone drink. So like black tea is fine. Like, that's a 0 calorie, like zero bullshit thing to drink. There's an electrolyte drink that I can recommend to you that's not going to overload you with electrolytes, but it tastes really good. It's 0 calorie. It's all natural. It's one that I recommend. So there's several ways that you can flavor your water or get water that isn't just water if you get sick of drinking it. But yeah, and when I say pay attention to food, the reason I don't go into more detail there is because different foods make different people inflamed. So for some people, like, we all hear about gluten all the time. Some people do react to gluten, but some people genuinely don't. So it does come down to figuring out what works for you. You know, the other big ones that people typically point to would be dairy, soy, nuts, peanuts. Peanuts are not nuts, they're a legume. And that's why some people can be allergic to those but still eat tree nuts, and vice versa. So nuts can be inflammatory, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel perfectly fine with nuts, but my brother's girlfriend was literally just texting me that she's developed a nut allergy recently. So it just kind of depends on how your body reacts to things. And these other things in your life, these other toxins, can play a role into how your body's even reacting to food. If your body is already in a state of stress, you can actually start reacting to more foods than you typically would if you weren't in a state of stress. So it sounds crazy, but literally, like, I don't know, I guess the best example I can give is, like, if you're going through an extreme state of stress, maybe you lost someone very close to you, you're having a tough time at work, the kids aren't listening, like it's just one of those times when everything seems to be going wrong. Your body's on high alert already because you're constantly stressed, so you might start reacting to foods just because you're more stressed. You don't know why, it's just the gut bacteria are thrown off by the stress, and that can cause reactions to the food. So just like paying attention to how you feel after you eat certain things, and talking about Jimmy's wife recently, like she noticed she was having some adrenal issues, and I suggested, hey, maybe add back some carbs, because resistant starchy carbs can actually help, especially with women, to regulate the hormones. And she's noticed some decreased fat, she's noticed increased mood, all that just because we tweaked what she was eating, which affects gut bacteria and all that stuff. So I know that's a very loaded number one. Number two is a little bit,
Before you get off of number one, can you just talk just briefly about
processed foods. So, I mean, I've been the crazy person talking about this for years, and it's getting into mainstream a bit more now. I always tell people, like, eat as close to the earth as possible. Like, you can see my plate right here. It's got potatoes, it's got Brussels sprouts, it's got duck on it. Like, I try to eat as little processed food as possible, and if I do eat something that's processed, I check the ingredients label, and if there's an ingredient on there that I don't recognize, that's like, I mean, even I recognize the ingredients because I know what they are, but like if you see something like maltodextrin, fruit or sucrose, like all these weird different things, like those are all additives, and sucrose is a natural sugar, but like if it's listed as sucrose on an ingredient label, they added extra sugar. Sucralose is man-made and could possibly be a carcinogen. So like there's all these different things. Like if it's just a weird word that you're like, I don't know how they got that. It was probably grown or created in a lab, and I try to veer away from those. There's a couple of exceptions which I can tell you guys about if you want, but for the most part, I don't really trust anything that like is not a recognizable ingredient.
Like cauliflower?
I love cauliflower. Cauliflower's great. But in general, processed foods tend to be more inflammatory, especially the whole, like, there's been this like saturated and trans fat like flashback. The difference is saturated fats are natural, trans fats are man-made. Trans fats are the ones that typically are like, they're the man-made version of a saturated fat. So trans fats are the ones that we're linking to all of these health issues, whereas saturated fat, if it's coming from a natural source like coconut oil or grass-fed animal meat, like those don't seem to have any effect as long as you're also cutting the processed stuff. As soon as you pair like if you're eating a grass-fed burger patty, totally fine. Add in like a processed hamburger bun, not necessarily good anymore, because you're adding in that processed sugar. So it's a really weird thing in research right now where we have to try and separate every single thing, because we can say, oh yeah, eating red meat causes increased chances of heart disease, but were those people eating just red meat, or were they eating hamburgers from McDonald's, right? So it's like it's this weird thing. So it's a long, convoluted thing that we're just still figuring out. But there is some research coming out more and more trying to separate those things. So number 2 is an easier one to tackle. Decrease the plastic in your life. It's been kind of louder recently that plastics, everyone knows plastics are derived from petroleum, which can actually really inhibit the hormonal function of the female hormone specifically in both men and women. We all have female and male hormones. However, obviously the female hormones are way higher in women. However, high toxin exposure to plastic specifically can create an estrogenic effect in men and as well as women. But it's the bad kind of estrogen, which causes like man boobs and like, you know, the things that men don't want to deal with necessarily. So some easy spots for this, we're already kind of being forced to do it, is, you know, don't use plastic straws, use a metal straw, or don't use a straw. Swap out your Tupperware for the glass Pyrex bowls, things like that, using glass instead of plastic. It's a pretty easy swap for the most part. Ziploc bags, I find, is the one that's hardest for people, and I totally still use Ziploc bags. However, there is a new company coming out with these like beeswax replacements. Literally, like, you could eat them if you wanted to, but they're reusable. They sent me some to try out, and I know that's like a woo-woo thing that's very new, but like there's people working on replacements for Ziploc bags that are reusable and sustainable and safe, so that's cool. Look out for those. Number 3, choose smart body care products. The second card that I attached to everyone's little thing that I gave you guys is called the Never List. And this company is called Beauty Counter, and it's one that my company partners with whenever a client asks for like ways to decrease toxins in their beauty care products. There's actually a ton of just like random stuff that if you look at the ingredients label of a beauty care product, it probably has the things on this list in it. That's because legislation on beauty care products has not changed since 1939. So they're literally allowed to throw petroleum and tar and batshit and all these things into their beauty care products. And yeah. Yes, glycol. Yeah. There's a lot of there's like over 250, but that list of things is some of the most prevalent that you'll find in standard body care, beauty care products. This is anywhere from body wash to deodorant to makeup to hair care, any of those things. Yeah, and the crazy one that I find, the thing that actually got me to look into this company at first was their sunscreen. Most sunscreens have more carcinogens in the ingredients label than it would be worth using against skin cancer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was something crazy, like 88% of all sunscreens have carcinogens in them, which is counterintuitive. Like, it's so dumb. I just bought my mom another bottle of this.
You buy a tree?
Shade.
You find a natural alternative. So this company does have a sunscreen that works really well. I've tried it out. I gave my mom some. There's a couple other companies that I can recommend as well. I don't just promote this company. This is just the one that I partner with because they have like all of the stuff, right? They have body care, they have hair care for men and women, they have full makeup. All the makeup I wear is always this company. So it's like good quality makeup that looks like regular MAC or something like that. But yeah, so that's why I share about that company.
We have to. Oh yeah. I mean, we have to thin certain materials.
Yeah, you'll literally find paint thinners and like gasoline in body care. It's like insane. It's so gross. Yeah. So I like to tell people like your skin is your biggest organ. It's the organ that protects the rest of your organs. And skin is an organ. If you're not gonna want to eat it, why would you put it onto the thing that literally absorbs whatever gets on it, right? So that's kind of my approach with that. I know this is a lot. Number 4 is sleep. This is one I think I mentioned in the last time I talked here, saying like a lot of people neglect sleep, and that's actually how you're going to see a lot of results if you're trying to lose weight or decrease stress, is just go to sleep. A lot of people will sometimes give themselves 4 hours of sleep to be able to wake up at 5 and go to the gym, but I'm like, maybe do that once or twice a week if that's the only time you can go to the gym, but like sleep the rest of the time, because the benefits of exercise come in the recovery sections. So not allowing yourself to sleep properly just means that you're tearing your body up without ever giving it time to repair. So that's kind of a pretty easy one to cover, I guess.
Defined sleep?
Huh?
Is it 6 hours?
Defined sleep. I would say 6 hours minimum. And you need to kind of discover... So the way our body's sleep cycles work is in 4-hour increments, which is why 8 hours has typically been the standard recommendation. There's like the first cycle, which is 4 hours, and then you kind of reset and have a second cycle of 4 hours. Mentally, I've heard it described as the first 4 hours, you're kind of reliving your day. Like in your mind, you're reliving everything that you learned that day. And then the second half is storing all of that information. So if you're finding yourself losing memory and things like that, it could be a sleep issue. But yeah, and I put plus workout recovery because it is just kind of a workout recovery thing as well. And some of these supplements. Yeah. Most of them are bullshit.
Okay.
Unless you are like an all-star athlete, you don't need Gatorade. Like Gatorade in particular, I just don't like. I worked at UT, like I researched at UT with Gatorade, who helps, like they're sponsored by Gatorade. Like we had, and milk actually, so that's why you see all that UT athletes promoting milk as like a post-workout recovery. But yeah, with Gatorade, like I don't know the exact numbers because it's been so long since I've had it, but it's something like 30 to 40 grams of carbs in a Gatorade, and that's all sugar. and literally, like, if you're working out for an hour, that's about all you're not even burning that much in your 1 hour workout. So you're just kind of shooting yourself in the foot if you drink a Gatorade to replenish. There are some electrolytes in Gatorade, but like I said, I have better electrolyte recommendations that are 0 calorie. They will actually replenish the electrolytes. They taste delicious, and you can save those calories for just a solid post-workout meal. Like this well-balanced meal that I have right here is a lot of veggies, some starch, some protein. Like that's a really good post-workout meal. If you're on the go and you legitimately have hours until your next meal after your workout and you get hungry, drinking just like a protein shake is fine. Chocolate milk actually, if you're tolerant to dairy, chocolate milk actually is like the proper ratio of carbohydrates to protein to replenish your muscles after a workout. Yeah, low fat chocolate milk. So low fat, and actually, and I don't typically recommend low fat products, but low fat chocolate milk, when it comes to rebuilding muscles, you need carbohydrates with the protein to rebuild those muscles properly. And chocolate milk is a 4 carbohydrates to 1 protein ratio, which is like the optimal for rebuilding muscles after a workout. And it's low calorie. If you drink a cup of it, it's like 120. It's like 100 to 120 calories. So it's like 28 grams of carbs and 8 grams of protein or something. So it's not like you're drinking 400 calories.
1% milk?
1% chocolate milk. And that's okay, like with the sugar. And it tastes good. Yeah. So I did used to do that a lot actually, and we have a lot of research at UT showing that as long as you're tolerant to dairy, 1% chocolate milk is actually a pretty good post-workout. Just don't drink half a gallon of it. Drink a cup of it. Drink a cup of it. And I actually recommend to people that whenever you're trying to figure out portion sizing, it sounds silly, but pour it into like a measuring cup. See what 1 cup of milk actually looks like. Because if I were to pour it into this glass, this is way more than 1 cup. This glass is about 350 milliliters, which is about a cup and a half. Yeah.
Or what we call a pint.
Yeah, great for beer.
Yeah, great for beer. Great beer serving.
Drink.
Yeah. So numbers 4 through 6 kind of flow into one another. So 4 was the sleep. 4 was sleep. 5 was incorporate a de-stress routine. This could be something super simple. For me, I have what's called a 5-minute journal. As soon as I wake up in the morning, that's the first thing I do. I literally roll over into bed and I wrote in my 5-minute journal. I like it because it's guided. It's like, what are your 3 goals for the day? What are 3 things you're grateful for? What are 3 affirmations? Like, boom, 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 really easy. But it gets you to think, like, what do I want to start my day off doing? I literally roll over, I do that. And then I get out of bed and I meditate for 5 minutes. That's it. And it's actually so hard to get me to meditate that I do a visualization first of like, in the future perfect world, what is it that is happening? And I like imagine a very specific like 5 minutes of my perfect world day. Like, what am I doing right here? And I think of what am I tasting? What am I seeing? What am I feeling? What are my emotions? All those things. And then that lets me drop into like a being present meditation. Whole thing lasts 5 minutes max. It's really hard to get me to sit still for longer than that, but just those like 10 minutes of me starting my day, like doing something to think of what am I setting up my day as, what are my goals, let's think about me first. That has helped with my stress so much. And that doesn't have to be you. Maybe you take a bath every night, or maybe it's you read a book for 10 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever it is before you go to bed, or you wake up and you make sure you do your coffee ritual. Just something that is not stressful for you. Making sure you do that every single day is super helpful with, again, the hormonal balance that kind of all of this ties into. And number 6, I said the supplements tie into sleep and de-stress. Because there are several supplements that I recommend. Even if you're eating a perfect diet, you can still use to decrease inflammation and therefore stress and improve sleep in your life. So the first one is CBD. I mentioned that I started working with a CBD company. You guys might have heard it as a buzzword recently. CBD is a cannabinoid, which means it comes from cannabis. However, it is the non-psychoactive, non-hallucinogenic part of CBD or of cannabis. So THC is the part that gets you high. CBD is the part that just causes the decreased anxiety, improved sleep, decreased inflammation. It's legal federally and in all 50 states. So that's really cool. They finally just federally legalized it in December, which is awesome. But I have a friend who has very severe MS, like to the point where she had to have 2 full-time assistants. She was in a wheelchair. She couldn't move her hands. She started doing all these decreased inflammation techniques. Now she drives across the country like by herself and shares her story. And CBD, she like preaches, was crucial to helping her with that initial decreased inflammation before she could even like serve herself food or move again. You look like you have a question.
I have a few.
Yeah.
So with the CBD, or we were talking like a pill, like
No, so typically it comes as a tincture.
Okay.
So that would just be like an eyedropper, and you put it under your tongue, hold it there for 10 seconds so the blood can kind of pick up some of it, and then swallow it, and then it'll go into your digestive tract, and slow release over time.
Tastes crappy?
No, so the company that I work with has flavored or natural. If it tastes if it's natural, then it tastes like weed would taste. but if it's flavored, there's like mint flavors and things like that too, and it's not bad. And then there's also topical.
With or without?
Yes, yeah, and I work with a company that's very high quality.
without.
Yeah, without
You do not need a prescription.
without a prescription,
So
correct.
you just walk into a pharmacy.
It's not in pharmacies in Texas. You need to order it online still in Texas. They're very
There's a place
strict
in
about it.
Elgin that has it.
People's Pharmacy, maybe. Not CVS or Walgreens,
No,
though.
there's
Yeah.
It's a pharmacy in Elgin.
Yeah, you can find it in. You can find it at People's, and you need to be careful because they're like it's such a bandwagon thing right now. A lot of people are hopping on it, which is why I have a company that I recommend. I have several. If you want to talk to me about it, happy to recommend them to you. But I like them because their price point is good and they're well researched. They're high quality. They're effective. Like they're the favorite one that I've tried so far. I get sent a lot of samples. Yeah. I get sent a lot of samples. Wow, I feel like I'm at an open mic. They're called Elixinol, but I'm happy to share more with that. The second one I would say is liver detox tools. I brought some samples for some questions that I'm going to ask today, but that's a list of top liver detoxifiers. That's a good way to just clear out toxins in the body. There's a lot of teas, People's RX, Whole Foods, even HEB has like several teas with those herbs in them. I try to drink that several times a week. As well as the Slenderella Boost is a full round delicious multivitamin that's full of B vitamins. Anything that is a B vitamin of the methylcobalamin variety is a really good liver detoxifier. And then organ meat actually is nature's multivitamin. I saw you gag. There is a company that has an organ meat complex supplement. I have the brand on there again, so that you can get all of the benefits of organ meat. I have a blog post that I'm working on about that right now. So milk thistle is an herb that it's an herb. I really can't describe it. It's a thistle. It's a weed. It's milk. It's not milk. Nothing to do with milk. It's a weed. I literally used to go out back and pick like dandelion leaves too and put it in my tea. Just like if you steep it with your just pour hot water on some dandelion leaves, it'll seep out the benefits of those. Just make sure there's no fertilizer on it.
You can get milk thistle with HEB just in with the.
Yeah.
It's a pill.
Yeah.
Or you can get it in the vitamin area.
Yeah, and I, again, happy to answer any questions about best forms of any of these. I just wanted to give this sheet as a reference. So I've been given the light, which means I have a short time left. I have a couple of just quiz questions related to all this stuff today. So a lot of this stuff that I talked about was related to autoimmune issues. Inflammation can cause autoimmunity. How many people, we have 350 million people in America now. How many people do you think suffer from autoimmune today? I'll give it to the closest answer.
25.
I'd say
Half.
I'm going to say 200.
I'd say all of them.
200, all of them. All right.
In some extent.
You were closest. It's 20%, 50 million people. However, they are studying constantly. I guess the statistic is a little off. 50 million isn't 20% anymore. But they are studying and finding new autoimmune diseases every single day. So I think that number is egregiously low. But that's what we got so far. Talking about sleep and recovery. Sleep is very, very vital to our health, and we really don't know why. There's so much research on sleep. We have no idea why it's so good for us. What is the longest world record for someone who has gone without sleep in length of days without dying?
12.
All right, I'm gonna just split it between you two. It was 11. Yeah, it's 11 days without dying. Without dying. Yeah.
That's important.
You can literally, I don't know, but that's crazy. Like, we forget how important sleep is until we hear that statistic. You'll die if you go like days without it. It's crazy. So the last.
If you get proper sleep, maybe that means you'll just live longer.
Maybe. I don't know. So the last question, I'm going to give someone a free order of CBD. How many types of diabetes are there?
7.
5.
I'm gonna say 4. I'm gonna say 3. I thought there was 3.
Y'all are both right. It's 3. I'll give both of you one. So this is the craziest. So there's type 1, which is the one we can't control. It's literally the pancreas just stops producing. Type 2, which is typically lifestyle related. The pancreas stops working because of too much sugar. Type 3 we know is Alzheimer's. It is a form of diabetes, and it's just been started. They just started calling it type 3 diabetes within the last 2 years, but research is pointing to the fact that the lifestyle conditions that lead to type 2 can actually also continue and produce type 3 later in life. So you might skirt by type 2, even if you have a high sugar consumption, but you could be giving yourself Alzheimer's by eating too much sugar, which is terrifying. But the more you know. I know I just loaded you guys with a ton and I went over
based
time.
on something I learned today. So maybe cannibals were actually trying to decrease their inflammation.
Maybe.
Those types.
I don't remember who said this.
That was very informative.
Thank you for letting me go over time.
Good stuff.